I took a trip to Yummy House. Yum, yum. Yummy, yummy.
Hello, I'm the Grub Street Lodger and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of cooking and we're going to be cooking cucumbers. Now, the cucumber is actually a really old vegetable. I mean, not this one, I bought it fresh today. But humans have been eating cucumbers for many, many years. Gilgamesh is reported to have eaten cucumbers. Charlemagne had a garden of cucumbers. However, by the 17th century, cucumbers had been regarded as dangerous, especially uncooked cucumbers. Some people believed that they could kill you. Not everybody. John Evelyn, he was very big into salads. He wrote an entire book about salads. He wrote an entire book about many things, but one of them salads. And I have here a John Evelyn cookbook, which is recipes from his salad book and a whole bunch of other things he did. He really wanted to change the way people ate. And he has about 8 or 9 recipes for cucumbers in here. Many different ways of pickling them and stewing them. Does not sound very tasty. But the recipe I'm going to follow is one given to us by Samuel Johnson. He said that doctors thought the best recipe for a cucumber was to take it and to slice it well. Okay. This is where I show my brilliant cooking skills. I'm sure I can cook a cucumber better than that. Right, slice it well. There we go. Little slices. 2. Vinegar it. Pepper it. I like a bit of pepper. And to throw it away as completely useless. Done. I have a theory, you see, and my theory is this, that in the 18th century, the cucumber was almost a metaphor for uselessness. I have seen cucumbers for uselessness in pre-18th century works like Montaigne and like Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy, but I've also seen it in, there's a Grub Street journal reference to cucumbers. Autumn Mathers talks about cucumbers a little bit. There was one in Tom Brown, and all the time cucumbers are sort of useless because, you know, they're watery, they don't taste much, maybe they don't give you much, you know, no longer dangerous like the people of the 17th century, but kind of pointless. Now, the most famous example of cucumberous pointlessness comes from Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. In his third journey, he gets picked up by a flying island called Laputa, or Laputa, which Spanish people find very funny because it means the prostitute. And so he goes up to this island, and it's an island of science and scientific wonders. But it's written by Swift, who hates everyone. So of course the scientists are idiots, and the scientific wonders are just stupid. It's a parody of the Royal Society. Indeed, some of the things the Royal Society did were stupid. Early on in their formation career, they used to do things like suffocate dogs to see if dogs needed air. There's a lot of mean stuff to dogs, actually. But in this, he goes to a man who has a certain thing he wants to do with cucumbers. I was received very kindly by the warden, and I've started too early. Here we go. The first man that I saw was of a meagre aspect, with sooty hands and face, his hair and beard long, ragged and singed in several places. His clothes, shirt and skin were all of the same colour. He had been 8 years upon a project for extracting sunbeams out of cucumbers, which were to be put into vials hermetically sealed and let out to warm the air in raw, inclement summers. He told me he did not doubt in 8 years more he should be able to supply the governor's gardens with sunshine at a reasonable rate. But he complained that his stock was low and entreated me to give him something as an encouragement for his ingenuity, especially since this had been a very dear season for cucumbers. I made him a small present, for my lord had furnished me with money on purpose, because he knew their practice of begging from all who go to see them. So yeah, the scientists, they are beggars, they are charlatans, they're doing stupid things like extracting sunlight from cucumbers. In some ways I quite like it, because I work in a primary school and we talk to the kids about reversible and irreversible change, and we also talk to them about photosynthesis. And it's almost as if this scientist has decided that photosynthesis is reversible, that he can, the sunshine's gone into making the cucumber, and then he just needs to squish the cucumber and get the sunshine out again. I actually think that's it's ingenious, even if it's nonsense. Well, about 150 years later, another writer talked about Lilliputians. It's sort of a sequel in some ways to Gulliver's Travels. It's called Mistress Masham's Repose by T.H. White, who's probably best known for Sword in the Stone, but I think this is his best book. And I've mentioned it before because Mistress Masham of The Repose was one of the characters in that Queen Anne film from a few years ago that we've all forgotten now. And so this is all about Gulliver has brought back some Lilliputians. They've been put on this little island called Mistress Masham's Repose, and they've built their own civilization there. And in the 40s, a young girl discovers them, and it's kind of an adventure story. There are some evil guardians in it. It reminds me a little bit of Wolves of Willoughby Chase by Joan Aiken, if you're into that one. And there's quite a few issues of morality in it about whether you can exploit these little, Lilliputians. They're not little, but little. And one of the main proponents of the morals in this book is a character known as the Professor. I like him a lot because at one point he feels his thoughts are creeping into barbarism, so he quickly puts his hand on the first book he can to defeat or at least allay the barbarism. And he feels it's a bit unfair of Swift to be having a go at Mr. Cucumber Man. And he says this: "Do you know," he said, "I think that Dr. Swift was silly to laugh at Laputa. I believe it's a mistake to make mock of people, just because they think. There are 90,000 people in this world who do not think for everyone who does. And these people hate the thinkers like poison. Even if some thinkers are fanciful, it is wrong to make fun of them for it. Better to think about cucumbers even, than not to think at all." And this leads me to a comment I've got, or a few comments I've got. On my Samuel Johnson video where I talked about Blackadder, a lot of people going, "Oh, it's a comedy," which I believe I said. I even believe I said I found it a really funny comedy. And then way back when, somebody said about one of my other things, don't overthink it. And this is kind of my excuse. Because I like to think about these things. And I'm going to go back to one more quote. This one from Samuel Johnson himself in his Rambler, number 85, at the conclusion. And he says this, when I find it: "The old peripatetic principle that nature abhors a vacuum may be properly applied to the intellect, which will embrace anything, however absurd or criminal, rather than be wholly without an object. And so, putting all that together, cucumbers as uselessness, a man extracting sunlight from cucumbers, that it's better to think about cucumbers than to think about nothing at all. That the mind, like nature, abhors a vacuum and must fill it with something. That's why I make these videos. In fact, this is more of a side gig to a side gig, but this is why my whole Grub Street Lodger blog and videos exist. Because I like to think about these things. And there's no harm in thinking about these things. And there's no harm in overthinking about these things. Because after all, it's better to think about cucumbers than nothing at all. I think I overdid the vinegar.
A little bit of cucumber, little bit of cucumber.